Okay, here we go with chapter 8, having left chapter 7 on learning. One aspect that I forgot, and as soon as I started on chapter 8 in memory, then I recalled what I had neglected to bring out in chapter 7. Now you recall chapter 7, we were talking about reinforcers, we were talking about observational learning. We were talking about mirror neurons that can reflect what is going on. And so another type of learning supposedly is punishment. Well, I don't know if you're acquainted with punishment. I am acquainted with punishment. A slap on the hand or a slap on the bottom when something is done wrong. But anyway, it's instantaneous. It's punishment right now. And this is basically the statement on punishment. Now, I know that we all have different focuses on this, so you don't have to go ahead and agree that this is just the way it is. Punishers can constrain unwanted behavior. The kid is acting up in the checkout lane at Walmart. You take the kid outside, you beat the kid, not really beat him, but you go ahead and through some type of physical endeavor, you tend to want the kid to stop acting up at the counter at Walmart. But this is what is stated. But is the behavior suppressed or forgotten? In other words, they just have, hey, I might not do that anymore. Or is that behavior absolutely forgotten and they never will act up in the checkout lane at Walmart again? These are just some of the aspects that you could consider in that. Well, memory. We have different types of memory. We have a sensory memory, and a sensory memory lasts for just milliseconds. Sensory memory is everything that comes through our senses, and then it is quickly forgotten. In other words, it may be filtered out, but if we remembered everything, every aspect, every color, every paper that we looked at, we may have, even though we have 100 trillion connections, we may start to fill up our brain. But our brain doesn't do that. We have sensory memory lasting for just milliseconds. Then we have short-term memory. And this is the memory that we have when we are getting ready to make a phone call, and we go to the phone book and we look up the number and we close the phone book and we start to dial the number and the number is gone. Short-term memory means that it has not been processed. We have long-term memory. Long-term memory is processed. Now, long-term memory can last for ages. Some individuals think that we lose our long-term memory. I am not so sure of that. What I do believe with long-term memory, we may need certain cues, that's C-U-E-S, to call up some of the memory that we have. Then we have working memory, which is in our frontal lobe, and this is kind of interesting with working memory, because when we work on information and we recall this information, and it's in our front part of our brain, close to the emotions. Now here's what's kind of interesting with working memory. I've heard the statement, I may have even made the statement, I just can't think straight. This is very possible because our working memory being closely associated to our emotional memory, and if our emotions are running high, they may overcloud our working memory. Remember, good old grandma says count to 10 before you engage in any type of act. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this could be why. Grandma knew what she was talking about. Now, is 10 a scientific number? I don't even know. But anyway, this was the saying, count to 10 before you act. And this is to let our emotional memory somewhat subside. We have a flashbulb memory. A flashbulb memory is a certain event that stands out in our mind, and we remember all of the circumstances connected with that. I remember when President Kennedy was shot. I remember exactly where I was at. When you first heard the news of 9/11, can you remember exactly where you were at and what you were doing? So this is a flashbulb memory. Then we have a forgetting too, an amnesia. We have proactive information where early learning may disrupt later learning. What we've learned before may not allow us to learn later learning. And we have retroactive, and this is where new information makes it more difficult to recall. Now, if we have injury, such as seizures, and we have an individual who was not able, his name is HM, and had an operation, a brain operation for seizures, epileptic seizures, and as a result of this, he wasn't able to recall new information. In order to remember, we must be able to encode, that's take information in, store this information, and then be able to retrieve this information. Now, this is kind of interesting. Individuals many times tell me that they can dual task. It's difficult to dual task, if not almost impossible. We may think that we are dual tasking, but what is happening, our brain is just jumping back and forth from one area to another. And this is why individuals who have every feeling that they are dual tasking may not actually be dual tasking, but their brain is just jumping back and forth. And it's important not to have interference when we want to really place something in our memory. An example of interference, I have been in an automobile with individuals, and maybe I've even done it myself, but driving down a street, looking for a house number, and the radio is blaring. I've seen individuals turn the radio down so they could look for the house letter that they were seeking. So how does turning an auditory outlet down help with sight? Anyway, this is what happens because there's just too much interference going in. State-dependent learning and recall. This is kind of interesting because we are in a certain room and in a certain place, and most individuals who start out a semester sitting in a certain place will be in that same seat at the end of the semester for whatever reason. Maybe they hear better out of one ear, they like the view better, I don't know what it is for sure. But individuals seem to do better even on tests when they are sitting in the same seat where they learned the material. Also, the state-dependent learning, it's even been stated that if individuals learn information when slightly under the influence of alcoholic beverage, that they can recall the information better at another time. One of the individuals that's associated with learning and memory is an individual by the name of Hermann Ebbinghaus, and he lived, let's see, in the early 1900s. And what he would do, he would write down a numerous amount of three-letter words. They really weren't words, but they had a consonant, a vowel, and a consonant in them, such as Z, O, D. Not really a word, but he would memorize them, and he would have long lists, and he would practice with his memory. And what he was looking at and really trying to figure out was how long would this be held in his memory, and how soon would these terms be forgotten. This is on memory. If we rehearse without any interruptions, I mean without the TV on, without, even though we do have a certain atmosphere that we like to study in, and I understand that. But if it doesn't distract from our studying, some individuals like background music. Just play it, it's soothing. It's kind of like a white noise, I understand. But if we study, and if and when we do study, without any interruptions, we can retain the material much longer. So this concludes Chapter 8. Hope all is going well in assignments. Be sure to check the grade book. Check the dates on the various assignments and in lessons and forums, because they do vary from time to time. But you folks have a good day and hope all goes well. And thank you, and we'll be seeing you on Chapter 9.